It's World Cup semi-final week, and this episode is presented by Royal London, founding partners of the British and Irish Lions women's team.
Coley, we are going to talk about Rugby Championship, some other bits and bobs as well, but England have just beaten Scotland 40 points to 8 and secured a semi-final. Absolutely awesome to see. What a World Cup it's turning out to be. We, of course, are in the studio tomorrow with Ruby Tui and Shauna Brown. So we're going to talk all things Women's World Cup then, when we're with them, and their expertise, and that will drop straight away. So you'll be able to listen to that on Tuesday afternoon.
That's right. But first, Len, there was a historic result at the weekend. South Africa beat New Zealand 43-10, which is the largest defeat in the history of the All Blacks. So yeah, there's quite a lot to dive into. And also Argentina beat Australia, which is keeping the Rugby Championship as tight as anything.
Mate, first thing I want to say is what a competition it's turning out to be. And I don't want to put too much of a downer on it, but it's such a shame almost next year that we're not getting the Rugby Championship, that there's obviously, rugby's greatest rival and a rivalry with South Africa and New Zealand playing each other in the 3-test series, and sort of Australia and Argentina sort of left in the wilderness slightly, especially when you look at the both of them that are on, I feel like they're on a real up. When you look at Argentina's results in the last sort of couple of years, the momentum they've carried on from Michael Cheika when he was there, then Felipe Contepomi taking over, the momentum that they've got. And you look at Australia that are really on the upward curve. It's almost a shame that we're not going to be able to enjoy this wonderful championship next year. But exactly right, Coley. What a game we were treated to. So we'll enjoy it for the here and now. And the Springboks made 7 changes to their starting 15 on the back of what happened the week before. I mean, the depth that these guys have, it's ridiculous. And 2 years out from World Cup, you looked at what they did in the summer. You saw some of the experiment moves they were doing. They were trying to pull off against Italy and Georgia and doing all these things and a bit of rotation. And they're 2 years out, and they lost last week at Eden Park. They made 7 changes this weekend and gone to Wellington. And they just keep unearthing even more depth, and it is actually frightening. I was super impressed by what a game of rugby, but I was just so blown away by the Springboks' depth and their power and some of the combinations that we'll talk about in a little while. What was your initial thoughts of it?
Well, one, I need to know, is it actually rugby's greatest rivalry? New Zealand, South Africa. The commentary is saying so, but again, England, France, England, Wales, there's plenty of other rivalries out there. Just a thought. Yeah, it might be the best because they're the best 2 teams, but is it the biggest rivalry? I don't know. Anyway, what are my thoughts? I thought South Africa, they kind of went back to the South Africa we know, second half. First half, I think they sort of played a lot. New Zealand first half, phenomenal. So their ability to go wide inside their own half. The try they scored was phenomenal. There's times, if you watch that back, they basically go edge to edge. They have Ardi Sarvea and Parker. On the other side, they have Wallace Asiti, and their front 5 that can handle the ball. And they're probably the only team in the world. There's times when Will Jordan's playing 10, who's a winger. He plays 10. He passes to the forward pack, who pull it out the back to Geordie Barrett, passes to Bowden Barrett, passes to Mackenzie. And they've got these 4 backs, and the wingers on the other edge. And they've got 4 or 5 backs that are just, there's no other team, I think, can sort of pull teams wide. And South Africa were coming hard with their blitz, and New Zealand were getting around it. And so they've got athletes on the edge to take the yards. But that first try that New Zealand scored was phenomenal, and they were causing South Africa issues. And then South Africa get an intercept and go the length. I mean, South Africa had to shoot. It wasn't all one way first half. South Africa probably muffed a couple of things, but they get the intercept, and then it goes into half time. New Zealand have thrown this the ball in play was phenomenal. The boys must have been shattered, but New Zealand thrown the kitchen sink at them, and I think it's 10-7 at half time. Start of the second half, a minute into it, South Africa get a scrum penalty. They mince them in the scrum, penalty advantage. They basically, Khaleesi makes a massive break up the middle. They go wide. Colby scores. I mean, hell of a finish, but you've thrown everything at South Africa from 41 minutes in. You're then behind on the score sheet, and it just, at that point on, New Zealand, South Africa on top. They just sort of territory-wise, the exits, they start winning the aerial game with Ethan Hooker, getting balls back, which meant they got field position, which meant they just pinned New Zealand back. New Zealand got sort of tried to run things back out of them, and South Africa just take them up and punish them at the end. I
think, Coley, because South Africa's physical power and because of their set piece dominance and things like that, I just think that they're one of the hardest teams to play against when you're chasing the game. When they've got a nice lead, is it almost plays into their hands even more. But I thought the intensity of the game, the first half display, as you say, Coley, some of New Zealand's touches and ball movement was phenomenal. You mentioned the first try there. The ability to go crossfield and then find, it's not even shape, but the ability to control your feet against a blitz defence to, get that ball out. They pull it out the back of that pod, long pass again, catch pass. And it looks so easy because it just looks like, they're going to crossfield and they've come back the other way. It's not. It's like the appreciation of holding your feet, your catch pass, all the basic skills of the game done incredibly well. Of course, Will Jordan walks in the end, but he only walks in because of the amazing sort of control of tempo and their leg speed, the distribution and all that bit. That's what allows it to do it. And actually Cheslin Colby's intercept, New Zealand are on there. Like, if that doesn't get intercepted, I dare say that's a try for New Zealand. That's suddenly a 14-0 up. And it was just, I don't know, it was just a great game, wasn't it? Even the grubber through. Cheslin Colby was at the first 10 minutes and Geordie Barrett gets back and stops it, a try saver. There was so many bits, but the intercept bit was actually quite a key thing for me because what Cheslin Colby does so well is he sort of gives him the fool's goal. So, 13's going at Cheslin Colby and almost, as you mentioned about the wide channels, Colby, and who they used in those wide channels, but Parker, he's almost too flat. So Colby he shapes his body like he's going to turn in to smash the 13 and really turn in. But what he almost uses his footwork is he sort of shapes the turn in, then last minute almost uses his left foot to step out and then get into that passing lane. And then once he's got that, mate, he is gone. He is gone. But, what a game. And as you mentioned as well, Coley, I've got to say, that right foot step for his second try, again, like, it's coming. Like, how many times we've faced that step? We saw it in the autumn against England, what he did. There was a crossfield and Freddie Stewart's coming across and he just goes, bang off his right foot. No one lays a finger on him. And you saw it again at the weekend. Like, you see it all the time. It's like, it's coming, but you still can't bloody stop it. It's just incredible ability to change direction, maintain such power and pace. Oh, what a winger. Like, what a player. I'm a bit of a roll here, but I want to know, Coley, scrum, because you've said for a while that you'd argue some of those Kiwi players are some of the best scrummagers, or they've always had traditionally a very strong scrummaging pack. But South Africa, once again, just, it's frightening, really, like what the power they have within their scrum.
Oh, yeah. Well, so they were getting results first off, and it's quite interesting because I think New Zealand, Tamati Williams, who came off the bench, actually got a couple of scrum penalties against Wilco Low. He's, I would say, the best looser in the world, taking nothing away from anyone else. A ginormous bloke. But they almost, I think he's coming back from injury, but they're sort of putting him on the bench in some regards because they know he's going against Wilco Low. And when you roll on Wilco Low at 42 minutes, and then basically, the past 2 weeks, he's pushing New Zealand off their own ball. And then this time round, basically, you've got a penalty advantage and gone. But I think the big part of the game for New Zealand was the line-out fell apart. Which didn't help. And say South Africa, basically, New Zealand were in a ringer in the fact that they couldn't actually get out of their own half. South Africa would steal the ball, then put them back inside their own half. And it was just this, like, at some point it was going to crack, and it was the Kiwis who did. There was a point in the second half, actually. We talk about news of the game and say how it ended up looking very one-sided, but you actually watch the game, there's bits where second half, Will Jordan goes through and basically throws the ball to the wing a bit on the floor, so it gets knocked on, and you think that's a try, which could be New Zealand. There's another point in about, I think it's about 50, must be 58 or something like minutes in the game. New Zealand have a penalty. They kick for the corner, and they maul, and they basically get done for blocking. The backlifter does not allow access to defence to hit the guy who's been lifted with the ball. So they get blocked. They get done there. Then South Africa get a penalty, so they exit. They kicked about halfway. They have a breakdown. They box kick it. Hooker gets it back. South Africa then play to the edge. So when they kick through, basically they have Grant Williams on the edge, and they sort of kick it through, and basically it bounces out for a 5-metre line out. New Zealand then probably do what could be the worst 4-man line out in the world, where you know exactly where it's going. We said last week about how big like Lou De Jager is, and you know what I mean. Like he's, you have to.
He literally throws it at him, doesn't it? You think
you have to throw it like doubly over him. I feel bad for the hooker there because I've spoken. You play with many hookers, you talk to them, and it's like sometimes when they're dummy, and they'll be in the line, and they're looking at it, and they're like, they see a dummy, and it's like if the other team doesn't bite on it, they know that they're going up exactly alongside your ball, and you're almost like you end up just throwing it to them because it's almost, you are aware that they're in your eye line and it's just something you can't do. You either throw it long and over the top, but it's almost like as the hooker's releasing it, they know it's getting intercepted. But they did that. Then South Africa 3 phases later score with Willems under the post, whatever it is, and it's basically that's the end of that's the game. But that game swung so much from, it could have been 7 points down one end and it being 7 at the other. So it's a 14-point swing within, what's that, 3 phases of a rugby game.
One thing I want to ask though, Cole, is the line out last week at Eden Park was the same issue for New Zealand, and you saw it again this weekend. Is that something that like should be fixed in a week, or is this a New Zealand issue, or is this a South African compliment because they've got so many jumpers and athletes that can get in the air and compete on line out defence?
It's both. South Africa obviously have a great, they have lots of tall bodies, pride themselves on the set piece, but you look at New Zealand as well, they're down to they're playing their third choice hooker basically. Cody Taylor, who's their sort of a great leader for them and a great hooker, is out injured. So, but the tail end of the half, they have the third choice, who's probably, although you're in camp, you're not getting the amount of reps that everyone else has got. So, and then you've got different combinations thrown into different things and you're under pressure and going into that, you're up against it, playing against the Springboks. So you have to be, everything has to be double top and, it wasn't, but it's fixed. Of course, it's fixable. Like we saw in the Lions tour, these kind of combinations, the cohesion, you can work on it and do it. What I find interesting, right? This is going to be, I'd love to see a statistic where the new law, where it said that there's a new law basically that the ball can be not straight, providing the opposition doesn't jump. And if the opposition contests it, it's called not straight. I'd love to see if there's actually been more, though it sounds counterintuitive, more not straights called, because previously you might find that, the ball was not straight. There was a contest, but referees just like, I'll play on. But now they almost have to referee it. So I'd be fascinated to see that, because I do think there's been a lot more, like, say, not straight line outs and pressure. And I don't know if that's because hookers now are basically just going practicing, whereas previously had to throw it straight. Now they can just throw it to their own bloke and they practice bad drill, put it that way. Or whether it's just referees picking up more. But yeah, it seems to have been like the law that might have been designed to speed up the game is actually slowing it down. But that's a different point altogether. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting how South Africa basically went, almost second half, went back to first half, then was played loads. And this is the interesting thing with South Africa, which I think will be, they've got some older men in their team, like Bongi and Etzebeth, who are getting up in the years. And you actually look at the first half they played of that game, the tempo they played at and the way they threw it around. I'm not saying those guys can't do it, but to week in, week out, it's kind of like the free-flowing rugby. Does it suit them? But then they've got young guys that can play that way. But then you look at the second half and South Africa basically tightened everything up, like went to the air, went to the power game, and then, beat New Zealand up. And it'd be interesting to see how South Africa, whether they look after those sort of veterans, because they can play the power game, but then expand their game with the young, the younger generation in some regards. And it's just, they've got so many options, and it's interesting to see what they'll do and how they'll look after people. And, where do they get to the World Cup and just tighten everything up like they have done in previous World Cups and just play power rugby, because that's how they can beat everyone. But yeah, no, it's again, really exciting to see how South Africa evolve and lead the way.
Well, what they are showing, Coley, is if they carry on almost like you say, the way they play first half to what they bring it back to that power game second half, is they're going to have the ability to play a number of different ways, which almost makes it so incredibly difficult then to play against, and like sometimes when you play against certain teams, what you're going to get, and if you're able to nullify it or certainly deal with it, like you're going to be in a position probably to stop them. With them, it's almost 2 years out, and again, you got a sort of the Tony Brown effect in him coming in, and again, there was that great vision from Razzie and seeing this it's so much easier to go out and be more expansive and be more broader about the way you want to play and move the ball, and then because then it's so easy at any point to then go back to that tight game, where if you're sort of coached in a way that's really regimented, very structured, very tight, it's then very difficult from going from that sort of structured sort of play to then trying to expand it. It's a lot easier going from sort of ball movement to then let's tighten up now, if you know what I mean.
South Africa, we talk about their style and their ability to play wide and tight, and like the amount of different halfbacks they have in their system now coming through. And we saw Cobus Ryanak starting at 9. You had Graham Williams, who played on the wing of the weekend, but he's a running style 9. You obviously have people like Faf de Klerk can play, come back in. Like as a halfback in that system, how would you feel, basically? Would you be sort of happy with just the fact that your role is, say, if you just kick the ball or, set piece control, that kind of stuff, or running a 9, or a blend of the both? How would you think the team manages that, and like the players within the squad, or they just know their roles?
I think there's clearly there's certain aspects of their game which is built into like systems and what they do in certain areas. But there's other bits where you can see, you know, Ryan getting out of the weekend, challenging around the ruck. And we mentioned it last week in last week's episode, Coley, when we said about when he went through and made that break. You got such big runners, mate. You win collisions, and then because you're winning collisions, you get speed of ball, you get front foot ball, which means you can play quickly, you can move the point of attack. Then you've got so many threats as well, like guys that can, you've got guys that can run over the top of you, but you've got these wonderful, athletic, jinky players as well that create one-on-ones and get another little half a yard. So I think, you know, being a 9 within that system must be very, very fun, because you're on the front foot, you're playing at pace, you know, you've got almost next big runner lined up ready to get you on the front foot, but equally you can whip it out the back at any point, find your next playmaker. Yeah, and I just think, and this is the thing, like you can play that way and you can tighten it up where like the weather comes in and, you know, you can go back to a traditional like sort of kicking game and squeeze them, because compete in the air and get Colby up. And if he doesn't win it, no issues. You know, you try and force a knock on, because then you go to a scrum, which suits you. So then you try and overpower in the scrum, you might win a penalty, kick it another 40 metres, right? Well, now we're going to maul them. Like they're a very, very difficult team to beat, South Africa. And I think from a Nines point of view, I mean, there must be a very fun team to play in. I think with the depth thing you mentioned, Coley, just like who they could pick, I will say Manie Lebok. You know, the guy 12 months ago, bless him, he missed a kick against Argentina, you know, away in Argentina, and he got a lot of heat for it unnecessarily. And I was really pleased to see him come on and do that thing. I don't know Manie Lebok, but, you know, I just know what it's like as a player when you're out there, Coley, and you represent your country, you're giving everything. And maybe sometimes you don't quite get the win, or maybe, you know, something happens in the game and you take some heat for it. These guys are given everything. And, you know, 12 months ago, he got some unnecessarily heat for missing a kick. So I was pleased to see the way that he went about it. Like, not that I know him or anything, I just thought, like, good on you. And, you know, doesn't that show, like, the culture and Razzie and all that, like, backing him and stuff like that? But, you know, even his crossfield kick to Peter Steph-Toy, just, you know, that arrowhead of forwards. We've spoken a lot about this podcast, you know, there's a pod of 3 forwards, and you hit the middle forward and he just pulls it out of the back, the box, straight crossfield, finds Peter Steph-Toy on that channel, who steps in and offloads, and away they go again, and leads to a try. It's just, yeah, it looks, to answer your question, it looks a lot of fun playing in that system, because you can go expansive, but if things aren't going your way, you can always revert back to, right, now we're going to bring you back into a power game. Now we're going to bring you back into a structured contest game. We're going to bring you back into a set piece game. So in short, Coley, yes, it would be very fun. And I also want to just mention Manie Lebok, because I thought he had a very good game at the weekend.
You've talked about Lebok there, but let's move slightly further outside Lebok into midfield. And again, South Africa's depth. Like, you think about Damian Delande, Jesse Creel, they're the sort of most capped Springboks centre partnership of all time, and how brilliant they've been. But then Damian Willemse comes along and just casually has a man of the match performance against New Zealand.
It's nuts, isn't it? Because obviously he can play fullback, like traditionally nearly fullback, can play 10, of course, has played a number of times at 10, but then slots into that 12 position, and just, you know, him and Moody as a midfield partnership were just awesome. And again, like, we keep saying it, but I just don't know many other nations that have this level of depth. And you know, Damian Delande, who I think is, you know, him and Geordie Barrett are sort of up there with the best 12 sort of in the world. You know, he's 33, he'll be 34 in November. And, you know, straight away, you know, I think he will carry on playing for the Boks. But if he doesn't, you know, by the next World Cup comes around, let's say he doesn't quite make it, like, you just unearth the next 12, like, without doubt. You know, that's not even thinking about Esterhuizen as well, that basically sped up for the last try as he crashed over Barrett. Like, it was like, you know, they just keep producing, don't they? But I thought Willemse again, it's the footwork, it's the ability to wriggle out of tackles, it's the distribution, playmaking. He can obviously kick, great footwork, like, not, you know, doesn't mind the physical stuff as well. Just, yeah, I mean, I keep saying it, but wow, they have got some serious depth. You know, and I think depth that is beyond any other national team as it currently stands.
If you look at, like, Delande, Jesse Creel, Oosthuizen, Lacania Am, when we spoke about Ethan Hooker played on the wing at the weekend, he's a centre, like, can play in the centre as well. Like, Damien Villemse, you look at that kind of like, there's 5-6 blokes there that could probably start or be in the sort of top 3 players in every other nation in the world, and South Africa got 6 blokes. So yeah, talk about the depth like this. It's fairly incredible, isn't it? Really.
We think as well, like Aronson's not on the other side of the wing. You know, like he's not been playing on the other wing, and you know what a threat he is. So like, Fassi as well at fullback. You got him, you got LaRue, and so even though you know some people might look at South Africa and go, well, they're slightly aging team. Like I don't think it matters. I think because they've got such depth, they can kind of rotate and look after these guys that, you know, where other nations can't necessarily do that. I feel like other nations have to sort of stick or twist, where they can afford to not stick or twist, almost just be really smart about how they use those older bodies, let's say, to make sure that they can carry on, keep giving for the box. So there we are. Right, we better move on to New Zealand though, because the thing is, if a New Zealand team loses in New Zealand, the New Zealand media goes mad and everyone loses the plot. So I hear some people saying, oh, New Zealand are in a crisis and blah, 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 blah. I don't think so. I don't believe that at all. What's your thoughts?
No, I don't think they are. Obviously, they'll be very frustrated by the scoreline and how it ramped up. But like, you look at that first half, they were phenomenal. You know, they don't throw the intercept. They're 14-0 up, whatever they are. Second half, again, game's in the balance. Will Jordan goes through, the ball goes on the floor. I'd say that line-out maul that got sort of blocked and called back in South Africa, and they're in the score. Like, there were opportunities. New Zealand had opportunities on top of the ones they had, but they weren't able to take them. And against the Springboks in those moments, you don't get them back. You know what I mean? So they're not in crisis. I mean, the only thing with New Zealand, I'd say, is they can be quite up and down in regards to their consistency. You think of the great New Zealand teams, and like you think about the ones that won the World Cup in 2011 and leading up to that tournament and before that, like they're constantly played phenomenally every week. Like, you know, they come on tour to the Northern Hemisphere and basically beat everyone hands down, or you go there and play a 3-test series and they just, every week they were, okay, they might take a bit to get going in the first game, but after that they were just flying high constantly. Whereas you look at this New Zealand team and they, like we've seen with like Argentina, where they win one, lose one. South Africa, win one, lose one. Like they're very, you're just waiting for that consistent performing. Like the French in the summer, that's kind of like they, not say played down to the French, then sort of smashed them in the second test, then third test again. They were up and down. It's just that consistency of performance. You look at many, you know how high for a sort of a non-neutral, like you look how high the performance could be from those New Zealand teams and the players they've got, they're phenomenal. But it's just that constant application of it that, you know, you just don't want to, you know, if New Zealand get that, then yeah, they're going to be even better, put it that way.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Colin, because the way I look at it is the way that they played that first half is the only team that can live with that is probably South Africa. Maybe France. Maybe, but I think they were playing with that much tempo that I think the French might blow out.
The way they're able to pull in the winger to play 10, and like it's obviously a training field thing, but yeah, 4-5 backs spread across the back line, all comfortable, going edge to edge. Like they're literally playing around the South African defence and playing that tempo, and if they build a score, then the things change because South Africa have to chase the game and like they start making errors, handling errors, and like, so you can see what New Zealand were doing and avoiding the sort of massive power game. But then they've also got like, well, Satiti, who's a phenomenal player. Ardi Salvez, a phenomenal player. Like, Tupai, the guy who's come in the second row, is playing phenomenally well. The front row is as good as they come. Like, you look at that team and you're like, they're stacked full of brilliant players. It's just that question of, you know, the style they play, and they can play the tight games. You've seen them like go toe-to-toe South Africa physically, but it's just how they, it's the sort of games against like Argentina and like the win last week, and I know they sort of lose this week, but it's just that application of constant, you know, that consistency of being really good week in, week out. Which
I think is probably what so many people have been used to, isn't it? Is that it's almost that just like conveyor belt of performances, and it's a little bit up and down. But, you know, like I say, for large parts of that game, the only team that I can think of that can live with that is the Springboks and maybe France at times. Because, yeah, I thought some of the rugby that New Zealand played was outstanding. So, yeah, no crisis from you know, watching afar over here. I will ask the question though: Do you think South Africa teams leaving Super Rugby is going to have an effect? Is having an effect on New Zealand, and will continue to have an effect on New Zealand? Because the Super Rugby at the moment is very much yes, the Aussie teams are improving, but it's just a case of which New Zealand team wins it. And I think, when they used to play the, Springboks teams used to be in there, what a great competition. And I think that, is that having a bit of an effect on them when you talk about like the consistency and that sort of hype, those levels that you have to get to that we're so often seeing? Do you think that's had a knock-on effect to New Zealand rugby as a whole?
Good question. I think it has an effect. Whether it directly affects the All Blacks or their consistent performance, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see. I think, New Zealand probably are, especially the club side and the franchise sides, are weak for not playing the South African teams. But again, we've seen in Europe the South African teams don't always throw out their best players. So I'm not the expert. I have my own opinions, but yeah, let's ask the people. Before
we move on, Cole, I will say some final thoughts. I am looking forward to Razor versus Joe Schmidt, because I feel like there's a bit of a subplot happening there. Like, Joe Schmidt's obviously leaving Australia. Les Kiss is going in there. Joe Schmidt was a part of the 23 World Cup for New Zealand, sort of helping. And Razor, like, if the Wallabies get going, I don't know. I feel like is there a bit of a subplot there between those two coaches? Who knows? I'm throwing it out there. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Is New Zealand rugby, certainly franchise, because obviously all the teams selected from the back of the franchise, they're missing out by not having South African club teams in the Super Rugby anymore, because I feel like the Northern Hemisphere is definitely benefiting from having South African teams, within the European competition and within the URC. On the back of that, the guys have, added to our tournaments that we have. So there we go. Let us know what you think.
Speaking of South Africa versus New Zealand, the New Zealand women regained some national pride on Saturday when they beat South Africa 46-17 in the World Cup quarter-final, Ben.
They did. They will now be playing Canada in the semi-final, and we'll be covering all that and more with Ruby Tui tomorrow.
And if that's not enough Kiwi content for you, we've got a special teaser from our friends at For the Love of Cricket.
That is right, Coley, because I hear there's a very big guest with Stuart Broad and Joss Butler this week.
Yes, it's Kiwi legend and current England men's head coach, Brendan McCullum, will be joining the lads. And he'll be talking all things cricket, the upcoming Ashes, his infamous Bazball, coaching philosophy, loads.
And if you enjoy this snippet, then just search For the Love of Cricket for the full episode.
I like that phrase, you sort of plan as if you live forever, but live as if you die tomorrow. And I think that's important when you're a coach. I think when you're trying to build teams, you've got to have an element of planning. And I think we've done that, along with Keezy and Rob Key and Luke Wright and Stokes and all those who help us around English cricket. I think we've been able to plan a little bit over the last couple of years by introducing. We knew that we needed a battery of fast bowlers to head down there with. We knew that we needed a settled batting lineup. We knew that we needed a wicketkeeper batter that had the ability to take the game away from the opposition. We knew that we were going to need a spinner that generates bounce, just like Nathan Lyon has. So we've planned all of that stuff. How it comes out in the moment, we'll find out. But our best chance is if we do just live in the moment each time, play what's in front of us, just make sure that we're present and we give ourselves the best chance, and that includes taking things test by test match.
As Ashes series, as an England fan, it's as good a chance I think as England have ever had, so wish you all the best. Good luck.
Don't cock it up.
Yeah. Last week, Coley, given Ardie Saveer's amazing performance, we suggested, where would you rank him in terms of All Blacks all-time back rowers? And the THBs have been in touch to have their say.
Yes, they have. I've been going through the comment section. Would you like me to read some out?
I'd love you to.
Right. I'll do that. We've got a comment from Gabriel Venter. Ardie Savea is top 3 all-time back rowers, I think. Skill sets have gotten so much better worldwide over the past 20 years or so, and he is such a freak of the game by the current standards. Interesting. Comment from Gary Calder. Richie McCaw is the all-time GOAT. Michael Jones number 2 and Ardie number 3. All brilliant. We must say, we have to... our list is probably of the professional era / era that we've played in, grew up in, because there are obviously legends of the game that go back way before our time, but we can't be honest if we've never seen them play, can we?
No, yeah, we have to do from the modern era. Like Michael Jones, bowler counts, unbelievable player, an absolute great in his own right. But like when I think of it, I think of sort of the modern era.
We got a comment here from Jack Kinross. As for Ardy, the guy was special even before he was an All Black. Now he's one of the best I've seen, certainly up there with the other guys you've mentioned. Even our captain refers to him as a spiritual leader, just a hell of a lead from the front player.
He would be a great guest on the podcast, Ardy Savia Cole, if we can somehow secure him.
I'll let you do your work, your magic.
I'll try my best.
As he doesn't play in the front row, so I'm probably not going to be able to speak to him. Got a comment from Firm Foundation. I've supported the All Blacks since 1972, and Ardy's the best all-rounder I've seen. His example is spawning players like Steety and Pollock. Unbelievable athlete, plus tough guy.
He absolutely is one of the best, without doubt. So it seems like all the THBs have been out in their numbers, and a lot of them agree with us.
Well, we'll have to ask Ruby Tui where she ranks Ardy in her greatest New Zealand rugby players of all time.
I mean, you got Carter, you got McCaws, you got Kieran Reeds, and then you got to start thinking about, I know we said back rowers, but when you even start thinking about the greats, you know, from the modern era, when I start thinking about it now, like your Reeds, your McCaws, your Carters, your Whitelocks,
Jerry
your
Collins,
Ardy
mate. You
Savirs,
got like
your Jerry Collins,
Retallick.
Oh my gosh.
You've also got Joe
Mialamu.
Mialamu.
Like there's so many. Like it's going to be too hard.
Mate. Just
We're going to
sliding
have to do
in.
an episode about it. We'll have to do an episode about it. Joe Rokothoko. How good was he? Oh my God. Tanga Umanga.
Conrad Smith.
Conrad Smith. Mal Nonu, who's still playing. My gosh.
Still
we'll
going.
have to do an episode about like our greatest 10 All Blacks, which will no doubt cause huge controversy.
Stephen Donald.
Stephen Donald, yeah. Jonah Lomu. Mate, list goes on. We've done the Ardy question, so let's do one for the Springbok fans to get involved, or anyone can get involved, of course. Where would you rank Cheslin Colby in terms of all-time great wingers for the Springboks? You start thinking of like Brian Abana, JP Peterson, who else am I thinking of? Chester Williams, Curly Aronsa, Mpimpi.
There's a lot of great players on the list, Ben, but I think it's a shootout. It's a straight shootout between Brian Abana and Cheslin Colby. So the THBs out there should let us know who's the better one.
Who are you naming out of Abana or Cheslin Colby? Get in touch.
Speaking of getting in touch, Ben, it's been 3 months and it's time for our Thrive blood tests.
Lovely segue there, Coley. Right, this episode is brought to you by Thriver. If you go to their website, in the episode description, you can get 20% off your first blood test if you use the code LOVEOFRUGBY.
Thriver is a personalised home blood testing service that helps you improve your health.
And we've actually partnered with Thriver for the whole of 2025 and have helped us see how our health has changed from professional athletes into professional podcasters.
Yes, they have. As you know, professional podcasting is a lot more sedentary than being a professional sportsman, isn't it, Ben?
It is. And I did mine the other day. I had to, my test kit arrived through the post because it's a subscription, so it automatically turns up. And they've added a little new feature, which I love. So now when you open up the box, which is very, very simple to use, you basically have a little heat pack, which you sort of pop it and you put it on your arm, sort of like a couple of minutes just to warm up your arm. Then, of course, you put in the device that it goes on your skin. You press the button and draws the blood out really, really quickly, really, really easy. It doesn't hurt or anything like that. And Coley, I was done, like my both tubes were full within, I'd say, 2 minutes. That's literally all it took. So great new addition from Thriver. And I got a message the other day to say that everything had been received safely. So now I'm just waiting for my results. And I'm a little bit worried about what I might be seeing when I compare it to my last results, given I was a lot more active.
Yeah, a lot more active. And you recently went down to the Premiership launch and I've seen the receipt for you and you claim there's another producer there. I did see the bottle of red, the steak, there was some mac and cheese. You did have some broccoli though, fair enough to you.
You're right. I may have brought some dinner through the business, Coley. I mean, we're small business owners. I may have brought it. I wasn't on my own, actually. I'll have you know, I was with another producer, and I did have some red wine and and steak and mac and cheese and some other side bits. But I also had, broccoli because I just felt like I needed needed some greens on my plate.
The greens were on your plate. Did you actually eat them?
I definitely had probably one broccoli stem.
That's good. That's a start, mate.
But it means that, I need to get the right nutrition in, Coley. So I've got to start slowly, start building it up. £6 that was for the broccoli, by the way. So thanks for buying me dinner through the business. Thanks for my steak and wine and all my side dishes.
And broccoli.
And broccoli.
Yeah, well, some of us have been trying to, you've been whining and dining, Ben. Some of us have been trying to stay ahead of our Thriver blood tests and trying to keep on the good work in post-retirement of trying to get our cholesterol down, basically. That's what I've been doing.
Have you been, are you still lifting weights then, Cole? Are you still running about or not? What are you doing? You doing off-feet conditioning?
I've been doing off-feet conditioning, yeah. I've been sat on the exercise bike, pedaling around, and I've lifted some weights because obviously I want to continue. When we finish, we have quite a lot of muscle mass. I don't want to lose all that straight away because I still want to be able to, my kids are eating me at house and home, so they're getting heavy now. So I have to keep the muscle mass and keep picking them up. But apart from that, yeah, I'm just now about longevity, Ben, and living a long time. I think Thriver's going to help us in regards to just check our vital markers and make sure, so it's going to be interesting, the shift from where we were to what we're going into. And I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, Cole, is what it's like when the weather starts changing. All the lads, everyone was always so vitamin D deficient and certain things. As soon as it goes into these, the autumn starts coming, and then you go into the depths of winter, and there's loads of bits that you're you wouldn't be aware of. But that's why I love this, because actually it's so easy to access. You can see it, it's data. You can compare it. You know exactly where you're at. You can see what the difference is between this time last year to the summer months to what I'm going to be like in the autumn to what I'll be like in January and all these bits. And you have all these markers and you can compare it, and it is so easy to almost track it. So, the Thriver is going to be very, very important as we transition into full-time podcasters and not being able to run around like we used to.
Indeed. And if you'd like to make informed choice about your own lifestyle, give Thriver a go. You can use the link in our episode description and use the code LOVEOFRUGBY to get 20% off your first blood test.
That's Love of Rugby for 20% off your first blood test.
Well, Ben, in the other game in the Rugby Championship, it was another stonker of a game. Argentina beat Australia 28-26. And it was another game that was full of free-flowing rugby, tries at the end. Our mate Julián getting on score. Another great example to anyone out there. He charges down a free kick. Australia take a mark. Julián, one bloke basically, charge down the free kick and ended up scoring a try on the back of it. It's just a guy that is non-stop, and all young players out there, even club players, whatever. That bloke, watch him in a game and just watch his work rate, and the fact that he gives up on nothing. He's a great example to all of us.
You're right, Coley. How many people just watch someone just take a free kick and hit it and whack it 60 metres, but he's just always alert and alive to everything. The guy thinks he's got loads of time. Julian's right there with his big dumper ass, full speed, charge it down, and then he was only going to win that ball on the deck because he's just got that mentality. But how good how good is rugby? I genuinely, I don't want to sound but that was a cracking game last week between these two teams, and we got it again. Australia they seem such slow starters. They always give themselves so much to do in the end, and they couldn't do it like they did the week before. They couldn't overcome. But just another cracking game. Rugby when it's played at the weekend and how it has been played is just awesome. But Julian was not happy with us, by the way, because he sent me a voice tag because on our social channels we put up about the Springboks and New Zealand result, and we didn't put up the Australian Argentina result, and he was not happy about it. Is this what he had to say, by the way?
And yeah, it was a lovely night yesterday, and it was a great game. We suffered a bit too much. By the way, I comment in the pod because they are just posting thing about South Africa versus the All Blacks. Okay, show some respect, okay?
You've been told off.
He loves it, doesn't he? He's been told off. I sent him a message congratulating him because what I say, him scoring, mate, 50th test as well as captain. And getting that result, the disappointment they had last week, losing to the death, to then go and win this weekend was awesome. So, no, when he sent that, there's a bit before that where he was basically off to go have some scoops, Coley. So he was a happy man, really. But he wasn't happy that we hadn't put that post up about Argentina's great win. And it was a great win, and it was an awesome game.
We should also now just not post anything about Argentina just to annoy him.
Just wind him up. No, because then he will get irate about it.
He will, but then he won't be able to slap either of us because we don't play anymore. He's also his big arse. I think Valentini went to reach over the line to score, and Julian's arse, I'm going to say, knocked the ball loose. I don't think it was his arse, but Julian tackled him, and basically the ball came loose. But yeah, no, that game, it was a phenomenal game, like Argentina running from everywhere. But there was a point where I think Callaway scores for Argentina, and then literally on the kickoff, Australia catch the ball, play a couple of faces. It was like the Lions second test all over again. Basically, they bust through. Big Joe thing goes through, and you're like, oh my God, like literally scores like straight after the other, and you're like, what? Argentina, sorry. You just think Australia just, like, as you say, they go behind, teams sort of get lulled into this, like, they lull teams into this false insecurity, then bam, they score twice in about 2 minutes, and you're like, the game's back on. At the end, they're sort of playing out to their own goalpost to score, and you just, they're entertaining. I'll give them that.
Oh mate, they can strike. Like they've got some deadly runners. Like Joseph Suaalii seems to be just getting better every time he plays, and we already knew that he was amazing at Union. He'd obviously did age group level, and the impact he's already had, and how good he was at the Roosters beforehand. But like just every time he gets the ball, mate, he's making things happen. They're small sort of shapes they're doing, and as you say, like it's weird. Like they sort of go behind, and it sort of springs them into life, and they suddenly just start like. Things start sticking, offloads start going to hand, they're sort of running riot. But yeah, another great game with, two teams trying to play with ambition and move the ball and play attacking rugby with great intent. And again, I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. It was quite funny though, Colin, because I was obviously, I was in Dubai, and I was there with Michael Checker, and we were watching the game together. And I didn't ask him who he was supporting, because obviously Australian, coached Australia, coached Argentina, but I enjoyed watching the game with him. I didn't dare sort of ask him where his alliance is, but yeah, he was well into the game, and it was a cracker.
I can see Czech supporting both teams, but at the same time also like secretly not supporting each team. So he's just having an argument with himself. It'd be quite amusing to watch him.
I tell you what was good though. He's I know all his family went to the game, and he was saying, we were sort of chatting away, and he was saying like what a difference almost the sort of the afternoon kickoffs has made, because like families can all go rather than the late kickoffs that there's traditionally been like sort of night games and things like that. And he was sort of showing me some pictures of all the family geared up, ready to go to the match and then go enjoy it and everything. So you think how good's that? And I think that's been a nice ploy from Rugby Australia as well to slot that into a sort of afternoon, and you can see the atmosphere that it's created. The games have been so entertaining, like genuinely, like in Argentina, and the way they play the game, like it's attack, like they're tenacious as hell, but again, they're just on their day, mate. They can beat anyone. As what the Rugby Championship is showing is how close it is, how competitive it is, and everyone can beat anyone. So will Argentina be able to beat the Springboks? They're beating everyone else once. Can they beat the Springboks once? They did it last year. Can they do it again this year? And from an Australia's point of view, New Zealand a little bit wounded on the back of the result. So I think you're actually going to see a almost like a reaction to that, because as we said, like New Zealand for large parts of that game were very, very impressive. But it does sort of bring some nice hype around the Bledisloe Cup. And as I say, I think like there's a little subplot with Joe Schmidt and Razor, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, Australia is improving, mate. They're on the up, and England, of course, play them first round, don't they, for the autumn? So yeah, I'll be keeping a close eye on how Australia continue to grow ahead of the autumn.
I will just say, after 4 games, going into the final set of games in the Rugby Championship, who would have thought that Australia would be top of the table? They're on 11, South Africa second on 10, New Zealand on 10, Argentina on 9. I reckon nobody out there would have predicted this table with those score lines and it looking like that after 4 games.
No, and also, Coley, there's a good chance that we can watch one of these Rugby Championship games because, of course, Argentina and South Africa are taking on each other at Allianz Stadium, Twickenham. So we can go enjoy a Rugby Championship game live and, yeah, go watch the great Julián Montoya up close.
Before we go, there's actually some news out of the England rugby team regarding their staff. Lee Blackett joins as attack coach. Obviously, just won the league as Bath's attack coach. And Richard Wigglesworth, who's current attack coach, is sliding over to do defence. Do you think it's a good move for England?
Yeah, there's been a bit of reshuffling again. I think Lee Blackett obviously did an impressive job in the summer. You know, he's been at Bath, hasn't he? He was at Wasp before that. And, you know, he's always been sort of, you hear it, like from a player's point of view, you hear about these coaches, oh, he's meant to be very, very good, etc. And he's someone that's like consistently pops up as, by all accounts, very good attack coach and very good at what he does. Now, he went on the summer tour to Argentina to help England because Richard Wigglesworth was away with the Lions. And he's clearly, Steve's liked what he's seen. England were very impressive on that tour. They had a great summer series, played really, really well. The attack looked good, very good actually. And he sort of managed to, in a very short space of time, Coley, with arguably not everyone available, like England looked really threatening and they looked pretty good synergy in terms of attack, and he's done very well at Bath. So look, Steve's obviously gone, like, I want a bit of a rejig. I want maybe some bit of freshness into that attack stuff. I'm not quite sure. But Lee Blackett seems like a great addition. Richard Wigglesworth, of course, was doing attack beforehand. But look, he's a guy that will know defensive system, you know, knows sort of attack exits. And of course, when you're attack coach, you spend the whole time looking at how do you break down a defence. So I think, you know, he now shifts to defence. I think Joe Alab's now going to be assistant coach to the forwards with Steve. So, yeah, look, I think it's a great addition having Lee Blackett. I think he'll unlock that England attack a little bit more. I think we'll see, you know, more what we saw from the summer and level that on in the autumn. You know, he's a fine coach. And I think from Wigglesworth's point of view, he goes into defence. He spent a lot of time in and around good defences. He was obviously a huge part of Saracens, which for years, big part of their DNA was a defence, wasn't it, Coley? So he knows that. He knows that system. He'd obviously worked with Felix. He's worked with Joe Alab. And he's obviously on tour as well with Simon Easterby in the summer. So he knows defence systems. Being attack coach, he's watched plenty of defences over his time, and he goes into that role. So a bit of a rejig at England. And yeah, I think it's a positive move, mate. I'm excited to see what Lee Blackett does with the attack, because I think England attack necessarily hasn't quite maybe clicked yet. And I think that he's someone that maybe will really help unlock it.
I agree. I think it's just more expertise in the environment and in the coaching. It's good for England, good for the players. I think Lee Blackett, we saw, it started probably actually in the Six Nations, England becoming very astute offset piece and set piece attack. You know, the final try against France from the sort of breakout from the maul and stuff like that. They were really good. I think, you know, Lee Blackett in the summer has shown, like, he's, well, for Bath for the past couple of years, shown how effective he is in that sort of set piece attack. And he showed it in the summer with England what he can do, and I think that's another string to the bow. I think Richard Wigglesworth, you know, as you say, he's been involved in some great defences, worked with some great defensive minds, and he's sort of probably becoming that all-round head coach. I'm sure he's looking forward to that challenge of basically, you know, he's done attack, he's done skills, he's done backs, and now he's sort of defence coach, and he's also coached Leicester as a head coach, you know what I mean? So in terms of him and his sort of all-round knowledge of the game, it's already fantastic, but it'll get even better. I think that's just another string for, you know, Steve Borthwick as head coach, having someone that knows the game and someone to bounce things off is just, it's great. I think for England, it's going to be a real strength for them to have all those expertise in the room.
Yep, great bit of business, and fair play to Bath as well, because I should think they probably didn't want to let someone like Lee Blackett of his calibre go, but a great addition that England have added there, so I'm excited to see how he goes, and of course we'll see in the autumn. We'll be back in the studio with Ruby Tui on Tuesday, get stuck into loads of World Cup chat with her.
But if you want even more World Cup chat before then, you're in luck.
We've got another podcast for you to try. It's the official World Cup podcast presented by Asahi Superdry.
It's hosted by Betty Glover and Anne Onwasiri, and just like me and Ben, they're here for a good time.
There's a new pod out every Wednesday during the tournament with great guests and even quizzes.
So, to listen to the official World Cup podcast, click the link in the episode description.
Huge thanks to Royal London, founding partners of the first ever British and Irish Lions women's team.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
For the love of rugby.
If you want to drop us a line, get involved with our socials.
Just search for @LoveOfRugby. And if you listen to all our episodes and need another podcast, go and find Joe Marler's Things People Do.
See you next time.